Waiting for Vic to get situated here. And we'll get started. So first of all, cheers.
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 Cheers to y'all. Appreciate y'all again.
Alright, so for anyone who doesn't know, I'm Dr. Kelsy and Dr. Peyton. And we had a question last week from our good friend Channing about stretching. And Channing is like totally our homegirl. Within like 10 seconds, I think, of us stopping our video, she FaceTimed me and asked about a good stretching routine. So Vic and I talked about it, and we talked about just different things that people need outside of stretching to also support the overall range of motion of a joint, especially in a pre-workout situation. As we know, Channing is just getting it real hard, so we want to be able to provide her with as much value as possible.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we're going to start off by talking about the difference between stretching and mobilization and when to do each activity. Okay? You want to talk about that?
So stretching. A lot of people do that, and they feel tight. Hamstrings is a big one. And then stretching is kind of the answer for that. As far as common knowledge goes, as far as the general population goes, we're going to dive into a little bit the differences between those. Reasons why people would stretch, as far as what they would think, is because they're tight. The best way to dive into that, as far as like why you would stretch, obviously, if you're tight, there tends to be a difference as far as our opinion goes, at least my opinion. I think she would agree with me. As far as if there is a range of motion problem, meaning that if your shoulder can't get to a certain height due to not a joint, but due to a muscle, then yeah, we should definitely talk about stretching. A lot of people think that a stretching routine would be good. Yoga is very popular. I'll let you talk about that.
We'll talk about that later.
Okay.
We're going to touch on that, don't worry.
Yeah, so muscles can be tight for various reasons. There could be adhesions. There could be scar tissue. That largely adhesions and scar tissue are the same thing depending on who you're talking to. It also could be, and a lot of people don't know this, it could be a perceived tightness due to weakness. For example, we're going to probably keep talking about the hamstrings because they're the most popular. Hamstrings can feel tight because of, let's talk about like maybe a glute weakness. So a lot of people will stretch for that. So what stretching does is it will, if you go down to the physiological level, muscles largely do this. We can talk about, again, the power stroke and stuff like that as far as ATP goes and everything. But largely what happens is we want to go from this to like this. And yeah, it can create a good sense of an increase of range of motion. Or in a lot of times, I feel like people feel like they're tight, so there's a discomfort somewhere.
I'm just a child. I can't hear the word power stroke without.
I got that answer right instead of the physiology. That's all I care about.
Okay. Yeah, no, I think that, there's a difference between, like, stretching a muscle versus mobilizing a joint, right? So if you're headed on to actually stretch, you're focusing on the length of a single muscle, right? Whereas if you're mobilizing, you're looking at the entire joint and focusing on the range of motion throughout that entire joint. So it's a completely different conversation when you're talking about stretching versus mobilizing. And I never thought about this before chiropractic school, but after chiropractic school, I think I think of stretching now in more of a diagnostic setting, like more of like, oh, I'm going to stretch this muscle because it's tight and it's limiting this particular portion of a range of motion, right? Whereas I think prior to going through chiropractic school, I just kind of thought like, oh yeah, stretching, like I'm just going to just stretch now, right? When, in actuality, it has a very specific, different purpose. And I also learned too, like I never actually stretched, ever. Like, do you ever stretch?
No.
I don't stretch.
No. Well, we'll preface with this. We don't stretch the way that you think that we do. Is my argument with that. Because mobilizing is still stretching, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, mobilizing. Yeah, I'd say it's a different
way to stretch.
A different way to stretch, a different form of it. But yeah,
So,
traditional stretching, like I don't ever do that.
So think about this. This may not always be true. We're kind of blanketing things. What if your muscle feels tight because it's hanging on for dear life? Let's say your body is trying to balance itself in the most basic, vague way that I can say. Let's say that your muscles are trying to tighten up due to the fact that there's something that could possibly be unstable, like the pelvis or the lumbar spine, things like that. So it becomes tight so that it can, if she's falling off a ship, I'm holding on to her as tight as I possibly can to make sure that things don't fall apart. So if you think of it like that, which again isn't the case for everything, but let's talk about the general population. If that's the case, if it's trying to hold on, making sure she doesn't fall off the ship, if she's trying to hold on, and your answer is to loosen my grip, it's not exactly, it's not the way that you, it doesn't make sense if you look at things based on what research tells us.
Yeah.
What research tells us most of the time is that it's either in a balance somewhere, again, a very vague, basic way of putting things, but most of the time, at least in my opinion, what I'm seeing is that it's weakness. The hamstrings are weak. They're either weak or there's the two bugaboos. They're either weak or they're trying to work because another muscle isn't working hard enough. Mm-hmm. Hamstrings do hip extension, but that's not the main thing. When I say hip extension, I mean the hip going backwards like that. So if your glutes aren't strong enough, your gluteus maximus, which is your primary hip extensor, among other muscles, then your hamstrings are having to work harder due to the lack of strength in your glutes. Yeah. So that it becomes tight.
Yeah. I mean, and off of that, I would say even more so in our friend that asked us this question, Channing, she's postnatal, right? So especially for postnatal women, that's even more so, right? That they're experiencing just a lot of instability. So going in and stretching those muscles further is really not the answer, and in fact perpetuating the problem in the first place. And you're looking at either playing like the short game and saying like, okay, I've been sitting here, I've been doing XYZ, I feel stiff, I feel like I need to stretch. And so, in the short game, in the short term, stretching feels like the good thing to do. But in the long term, in the long game, what are you actually doing for the overall system?
Right. Yeah, I think.
And that's not just pre-postnatal women, right? I mean, men can experience that too.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, that's not limited to that population, but
Yeah, Andy Hill, my boy. I hope you're watching this, but my dude's got some tight hamstrings. The thing behind that is.
I'm also using y'all's wedding wine glass, by the way.
The thing behind that is something that we're not challenging the fact that stretching will help, I think, to an extent. We're also not challenging that stretching is wrong. We're also not challenging that stretching will make you feel better. Because there may be some people that are going to contact us and be like, stretching always makes me feel better. I'm not doubting that whatsoever. Again, we have to look at the issue. Why is it tight? Why does it feel tight? If it's weakness, if you get rid of tightness for stretching, and the problem is tightness, yeah, you're going to feel better. If the reason why it's tight is because of weakness, it's only going to last minutes to hours to days, depending on who it is and what the problem is.
Well, and off of that too, though, with when people say, "Oh, I'm stretching," right? A lot of people actually aren't stretching, right? Because a stretch is technically held for 4 sets of 30 seconds.
At the very least.
At the least, right? So I mean.
If you're stretching less than 30 seconds, you're not going to squat.
Yeah, so I mean, if you've ever actually, there's like a bird party outside. If you've ever actually started stretching and held it for 30 seconds, that's actually a really long time to sit in a stretch. I mean, that's actually not something I find a lot of my patients or clients are actually doing or actually do. You know, so when someone says, like, I'm stretching, if you look at what they're actually doing, 9 times out of 10, it's not stretching.
Yeah, I think, so another thing, so there are certain ways to stretch that I think that we agree with. PNF stretching is a great way to stretch. The reason why is because you also have to stimulate the muscle that you're stretching. In other words, you also have to contract, shorten the muscle that you're lengthening. The beauty behind that is that you're kind of doing both. So, for example, you, in a PNF stretch, let's say you hold for 20 seconds, and then you do an isometric contraction, meaning that, again, like we talked about last week, that this muscle is not moving, the angle is not moving, but it's holding for a second. When you're doing that, you're, for a blanket way of saying it, resetting the receptors in the muscle, Golgi tendon bodies, rather, that largely dictate the amount of stretch that is allowed, pretty much. So PNF stretching is great. I don't know what it stands for, but storage is cool. I'm not really sure. Sorry guys, we're having another problem. It's not me. It's not me.
It's always me.
It's always there.
It's always me.
But I don't know what PNF stands for. I know Heather, my girl, homegirl, if you're watching, you'll probably Google that and probably leave a comment for me because I don't remember what it stands for. But PNF stretching is a great way to do it. It's quick and it does help. So I think the main thing that we're diving into is stretching is not always the answer. It is a short-term answer. As far as what new research is saying, it's great for injuries. It's great for if you need to increase range of motion of certain joints, like things like that. But at the same time, I would say, as far as my argument goes, it's very much the beginning of something. So as far as mobilization goes, when I think mobilization, first of all, whenever you're stretching, I don't want you to think about stretching a muscle as much as you're trying to increase a range of motion of a joint. For example, I'm going to try to get up here.
Okay.
Yeah, that's not happening. So hamstring, right? You're stretching your hamstring like this. You have to think about that. This is hip flexion. If you go back the other way, that's hip extension. But if you're going into hip flexion, that's what I want you to start thinking about as far as that goes. Your new goal should not be to increase or decrease tightness as much as you should start increasing certain range of motion of certain joints. And that's what we'll start with as far as like the differences between stretching and mobilization goes. So, mobilization. So, mobilizing. This is a huge argument. We're not going to get into it. Not a huge argument, but like if you're stretching, technically you're mobilizing. Correct. Again, just like I said. Now, mobilization is a little more important. And the reason being is joints don't have a lot of blood flow in. How do they get their nutrition, their lubrication, their oxygen, things like that they need to be healthy, right? So it's a lot like a sponge. You get a sponge, I don't know anyone who puts a sponge underwater like this, and if they do that, you're probably a serial killer. You need to do this, and everyone moves the sponge around. The reason why is because you're creating space that needs to be filled. To my chiropractors, adjustment. Now, whenever you move like that, whenever you're creating movement in that joint, you're moving the joint in a way that it can create space that needs to be filled, creating a vacuum effect that it has, that it brings osmosis, if you want to call it that, to bring nutrition from other places from the body, probably the blood, to start making that joint healthy. And to be perfectly clear, there is not one single joint in the body. They're not all the same. They all have different properties. There are different types of joints in the body. They all need to be fed appropriately. So stretching a muscle isn't exactly the most important thing as much as mobilizing a joint is important. After we do all this, we're going to show you kind of our routines as far as like mobility goes. So that's how they get their nutrition, I would say. So when would you mobilize? When's a great time to mobilize? When would you say a great time to start mobilizing joints? Or have a mobilization, let's say, when would you want to do a mobilization routine instead of a stretching routine?
Oh, me?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the other host.
Me.
She's on
No, I was listening. I just thought I thought it was a rhetorical when you would do it.
No.
Okay. I mean, I always tell my patients if we're moving first thing in the morning and right before we go to bed.
Mm.
Right? Those are the two times. Like, if it's not a workout situation, right when you get up, before your feet hit the floor, or right after your feet hit the floor, you should be doing something.
Here, let me interrupt for a second. The reason why she says that is because whenever you're sleeping, you're not moving much.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said before, your joints probably aren't getting a lot of nutrition whenever you're sleeping, which is good. Don't get me wrong. You're probably healing whenever you need to heal, but whenever people have osteoarthritis, okay, whenever the joints are degenerated a little bit, usually not. Some people don't know this. People that are watching, but the one of the telltale signs of that is they're like, yeah, in the morning, probably for an hour, 30 minutes to an hour, like it hurts, but then the more I move around, it feels better.
We're going to be talking about old people soon. I've got some questions. We're going to be talking about old people.
So so just to let you know why she says something like that, that's the reason why.
Well, and also for before bed, right? Like, how many people sleep in like the most effed up positions, right? And they're all over the place, and they, you ask them, you're like, hey, when is your pain worse? And they're like, oh, it's right when I wake up in the morning. Well, gee, I wonder why, because you sleep in like a G.I. Joe army crawl weird position, right? And I'm guilty of that too, right? So if we can, right? So we're doing our mobilizations before you go to bed, when you wake up in the morning, and then also before you work out. So there is in addition to mobilization, there's another component of a warm-up for working out that Vic and I both agree is probably more important. I would say more important than mobilizing.
Sure.
Is muscle activation.
Right. That's a big thing. There's a huge difference between stretching and mobilizing. And I was just thinking that in my head. So one of the big differences is there's between passive and active. Passive mobilizing a joint is stretching. Getting a strap and putting it around your foot and pulling it to stretch your hamstring is a passive way to mobilize a joint.
Mm-hmm.
In our terms, or I guess the way that we're defining it for now, so people can understand mobilizing in our terms, and you'll see whenever we post our stuff, we're actively moving those joints. Mm-hmm. We're never really passively moving a joint. Mm-hmm. And I've seen her do it. We literally just did it. There's no straps involved. We're not stretching.
There's zero equipment.
No, it's a lot of movement. It's a lot of moving, doing things like that, activating muscles, things like that. So
and I think too, this is a good flow into the yoga topic that we touched on earlier, because I used to teach yoga, and so I love yoga. Don't get me wrong, I absolutely love it. But my whole thing with yoga is we have people come into clinic all the time, and they say, hey, my back started hurting, so I started going to this yoga class, and it got worse, or it's not helping, right? And those are the kind of things that people say about yoga. Mm-hmm. And being someone who does yoga and who loves yoga, I never recommend it for back pain. Ever. Right? I would recommend Pilates over yoga for back pain any day of the week, and that goes back to muscle activation. Right? And at the end of the day, there are so many people out there who have instability as the cause of their issue rather than needing to stretch.
Yep. Back to what we were talking about prior to this. There is a difference between instability versus stability. Like I was saying before, muscles may be tight because they're hanging off for dear life to create stability. Mm-hmm. Now, the preface, we're not against the entirety of yoga. Mm-hmm. But if you have low back pain, go see a doctor.
Yoga might not be your best move. Mm-hmm. Nope.
Look, yoga is great for mobilizing, but again, there is a difference between being mobile and being stable. You can have both, but gymnasts, for example, I have a few gymnasts under me that I'm working with, and their problem is not I'm never going to tell them to stretch. for example. And again, the reason why is because they don't need to, and they still they feel tight. My gymnasts feel tight. I'm not going to go tell them to do splits. I'm not going to tell them to stretch their hamstrings.
Yeah.
Right? I got to find the issue here. Now, that's again, this is kind of a blanket statement, but to put things in perspective, I have gymnasts, mobile people, very mobile, that feel tight. The issue becomes that the fact that they are, it's an instability. They need to become more stable because their muscles are probably hanging on for dear life to make sure that whenever they're doing rings or high bar or pommel horse or P-bars or one of those things, that their shoulder doesn't come out of socket.
Right.
So there's a difference between those two, just to kind of give you an example.
Yeah. I mean, and even just for general low back pain, right? If things are unstable, right, what's going to happen is your muscles are going to go, oh crap, and try to hang on. And that in that moment you're tight, but long term, not so much. And in the long term, how can we stabilize your core? How can we stabilize the muscles that support the spine in order to keep you out of that cycle and out of that situation of spasm and issue? And also back to the working out situation, and doing that activation prior to your workout in order to feel the muscles and make sure that you're doing the warm up properly or the workout properly in order to prevent injury.
Mm-hmm.
Right, so that's the other kind of component of that.
Yeah. So we'll talk about. So mobilizing should be in the morning and before you go to sleep. For me and for her as well. There's a few different ways to warm up. Okay, so there's a difference between we're talking about warming up. This is us trying to combine stretching and mobilizing and activating muscles. So whenever we say warm up, we're trying to go from Shanning's question to try to figure out a way to create a better picture for everyone that we think is the best answer. Something that you can do in the morning, something that you can do before you work out, something that you can do after you work out, because my warm up and my cool down are the same thing, just in reverse.
Same.
And then before you go to sleep.
And I'm very big on, and any of my clients who have logged on right now, I see some of y'all throwing up hearts. I love that.
What up, cuz?
All my clients know I'm really big on morning routines. I'm really big on the second I get out of bed, I am chugging water. I'm writing down all the things I'm thankful for, and I am doing my stretches and by stretches I mean mobilizations, right? Because we use those words back and forth. But in doing my mobilizations, and same thing before I go to bed, right? Before I go to bed, I'm chugging water. I'm writing down 5 things that I'm thankful for, and I'm doing my mobilizations. And my mobilizations are targeted much towards my issues and my problems that I have in my body, to keep myself healthy. And I know Vic does the same thing before he works out, right? He does a lot of McKenzie work because of his back issues. So we both came up with routines to provide you guys with, and we're going to be, so what we're going to do, we're going to shut this down and go live again and do it again.
Yes, after this, not right now.
Yeah, okay. So yeah, we're going to be doing them here, so if you guys want to stick around, we'll
be quick,
here.
5 minutes.
Yeah, they're just going to be quick 5-minute routines. He'll go through his and I'll go through mine. If you want us to message them to you, go ahead and DM us your email, and we'll get them over to you via email. Just, go and log on to DM. If you watch them and you're like, oh wow, that was really good, I want to start incorporating that into my routine, just shoot us a DM with your email.
They'll also be on our Instagram as well.
Yeah, they'll be posted to Instagram. No promises how long that's going to take, because we're both tired.
No, if we post on it'll sit.
It'll stay there?
Yep.
Okay. I don't know how to use technology, so that's his job.
Her birthday was yesterday. She's officially an old woman.
I officially don't understand.
Here's your birthday, honey. Yay!
Yay.
Everyone comment happy birthday.
Thank you.
So, here's the thing. There's a general warm-up. General warm-up is to increase functional potential for the body, at its entirety. What do you think a warm-up is? To the general population, why is it called a warm-up? And granted, I would love if y'all started commenting, because I want to see what people. I want to see.
You guys are so sweet.
I want to see what y'all think. Like, why is it called a warm up? Have y'all ever thought about that? Why is it called a warm up? And I have a few arguments for this, so please comment. I would love to see it. So here's the thing. I think the warm up aspect is real, but I think it's only half the battle. So getting your heart rate up and or increasing body temperature. Not against that statement whatsoever. Increase of body temperature, increase around the muscle that we're using pretty much, it will increase electrical activity. It will increase the speed of contractility of the muscle, meaning that you will contract faster. You'll be more explosive. So I'm not against that whatsoever. The argument is warm up could be in a hot shower or a sauna, technically speaking. The other half, and again, this is kind of where we're building up the mobilization of it. Not only is it healthy for the joints, but I don't want to call it warm up anymore, personally. I like to call it pre-activity preparation. Fancy way to say it, but a pre-activity preparation, meaning that based on what you're about to do, you can stimulate, or you can warm up for that, right? You could do the warm up aspect, but another thing that y'all need to know is that you're also preparing your central nervous system. Yep, your central nervous system, your CNS.
That's your spine and your nerves.
Your spine, your spinal cord,
That's your spine.
And your
Your
brain.
spine and your brain. Warming up your spine and your brain.
And your brain.
I'm done. Go ahead.
Okay. So you're preparing those. You're preparing that, and then also the psychological readiness. I don't know about y'all, but I'm not going to go squat 405 pounds right off the bat. There's a lot of psychology that comes in that. I got to be ready for it.
People are throwing parts of that.
That's me.
I love that.
Lord Jesus. I feel y'all, but like the thing about that is, again, you want to be ready for it. You want to be psychologically ready. You want to be. You want to build up the CNS. It's the central nervous system. Y'all, the central nervous system is not gasoline in a match. It's not just ready to go like immediately. Those are things that you have to think about whenever you're preparing for what you're about to do to lighten that up.
Didn't we read an article a few months ago about like activating the CNS, but in that method, like doing the warm up, like say you're gonna bench. I'm gonna use my numbers for bench, right? Say I was benching that day like 115 pounds for 2 reps, right? And my warm up would be like 105 for 5 or something. And that was in that study, like that. Diving into the cold water was like a good way to warm up the CNS.
Possibly.
I thought you had told me you read that a while ago.
No. Yes and no. It wasn't necessarily there. So I've read a few articles, but
We read a few.
yeah.
Brothers first.
So forgive me for a second. What are you asking me exactly?
No, you had said how the nervous system isn't like a match of gasoline, right?
Correct. Yeah.
So, but haven't there been some studies that I thought we talked about months ago that you had said they very like quickly. There are ways to like very quickly warm up your nervous system like that.
So there's a few studies that suggest that. So we're not really sure about the lower body because the lower body is shown as far as like if you're about to do squats. One of the better things to do is jump squats, which would be a lighter weight. The other one it would be to, and these are suggestions. I don't know if this is 100% true, but if you are about to bench 225 for 8, that you should bench 275 for 1 or 2 to stimulate the nervous system. I don't know how credible that is. I'm not saying, because here's the thing, that's a little bit dangerous in my view. I might see what they're saying whenever I'm reading those articles, but what they're saying is to just go up to me, right? I don't know what my bench press is, but whatever. We'll say we'll go. I'm going to go up to the bench. I'm going to put 275, and I'm going to bench it 3 times without doing squat. Here's the thing: CNS is probably going to be stimulated a lot. My muscles aren't ready for that. That's a way to tear some things. That's a way to blow something. That's a way to.
Well, and I don't think the technique is necessarily meant to be without mobilization or without other warm-up
This is where research
central nervous system. Yeah, just in terms of central nervous system activation.
Yeah. I would say to answer that question in the most safe way possible, there's a reason why. So if I'm about to squat 405 for 3, then I start at the bar and then put 25s on, and then 45s on, and then I go to 225, then 275, then 315, then 375 or 385, and then I go from there. So like this is kind of what we're diving into. There's a general warm-up that we're going to show you, but whenever we're doing those things, whenever we're doing the general side of things, you are stimulating some things. There's a specific warm-up, which is what she's talking about. The specific warm-up is doing squats before you squat, doing lunges before you squat, doing 10-yard sprints before you do that, things like that.
So to preface, Vic is like the king of warming up. Like his warm-ups, we joke like that his warm-ups are longer than his workouts. Like he warms up forever, and I mean, rightfully so. That's how you should do it. I don't. I'm terrible at warming up. I would like literally the 2.5-minute routine you guys are about to see is like what I do before I do it.
I know,
which is terrifying, and I should not do that.
Well, so but here's the thing, right? So
but I also do it every morning and every night too. Like I also do those things more frequently. I feel like, whereas you do it for like 20 minutes one time before you lift. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's just a different conversation.
The argument is, should I have been doing this warm up the entire time that I've been working out? Probably. What y'all may or may not know about me is I've broken my neck when I was 15, and I broke my lower back in 2 places when I was 19. So my warm-up takes a while because I need to be safe if I'm squatting like that. Y'all, I don't go to parallel squats. If anyone wants to fight me over that, I don't go to parallel squats. If anyone wants to fight me over that, we can talk. But there's a reason why I do box squats, because it's a safety thing. So to put things in perspective for you, she has a quick way of doing things. She hasn't been injured a lot. I have. My warm-up is going to take a little bit longer. For all my boy Tony, my guy, if you're watching, I got you. My warm-up will help you a lot because my spine is about 168 and I'm 29 years old. So whenever you think of warm-up, I want you to think of a few things. To increase body temperature, right? Yeah, it would probably increase your heart rate as well, but don't think about the heart rate. Think about the increase of temperature. So if you're just warming up and you're not sweating a little bit, or you're heating up, or you feel like you have to turn the AC down, or what have you, you're not there yet. So think about body temperature for one. The second thing, CNS. That will probably take care of itself. You're not going to feel that, so you need to be very conscious about those things. That you're going to be moving in the patterns that you're about to move into. Like last week, don't just pick. If you do pick something off of CrossFit.com and you're just going to do AMRAP or what have you, make sure that you prepare yourself for those movements, right? The other thing is muscular changes. Those are things that you're going to feel, you should feel. Those are the jump squats before you squat. Those are the push-ups before you bench. Those are the sprints before you sprint. Those things. To my long-distance runners, to my cyclists, you don't really have to warm up that much. And the reason why is because your warm-up is what you're about to do anyway. Right? Sprinting for sprinting. If you ever go to a track meet and you ever see a guy who's about to run a 100-meter dash, they are sprinting. Now, it might not be 100 meters, but like they are sprinting. Same thing there. You're going to pretty much warm up as you go. Cyclists, kind of the same thing. If you want to go jump in a sauna, go in a hot shower, those things are incredible. Research shows that those things will help you in long-distance runs.
Well, I would also say, too, with the runners and anyone who does like a repetitive motion like that, triathletes, cyclists, those are probably the only people from a clinical perspective that I would say should stretch. Like true stretch. Because runners, like they're going to have tight hip flexors, tight calves, tight pecs, right, from that constant motion that they do all the time. I would say those, going back to the beginning of why we, started this whole thing in that question, unless you're doing those kind of repetitive motions day after day, there's no reason for you to actually true stretch.
I'm trying to read Heather. Heather, I'm not. Sorry, I'm trying to read.
My eyes aren't that good.
I'm not either. I'll read it.
We'll get to you, Heather.
I'll read it in a second. Good,
you respond to what I said.
To put that in perspective, what she means is that runners don't move a lot. They move a lot. Their joints aren't moving a whole lot.
Oh, she's asking about running. She's literally asking about running.
Oh, so yeah. So my thing is, look. Okay, so let's talk about. You can't see my hips and you can't see my knees, and I'm not about to stand up because I'm comfortable. So whenever you're running, this is as far as you're going. So why wouldn't your pecs and your shoulders and stuff like that be tight? Mm-hmm. This is what we're talking about, because on a competitive level, marathoners, people that are doing this on a regular basis, probably you should stretch. We're not saying that you should only stretch, but probably. And the reason why is because you're either doing this, or you're on the computer doing work,
or you're on your phone.
You're on your phone.
But yeah, I think runners, particularly runners, but cyclists, triathletes, any endurance athletes, those are the people I would blanket statement say you should be stretching your pecs, your hip flexors, and your calves at minimum, true stretch. And that's really the only, from an athletic, clinical perspective in the population, I would say, true needing stretching. Not to say you don't need mobilization because you can play. Those are the people I would say.
Well, here's the beauty of it. You can do both. You can stretch those things and mobilize joints at the same time. And I think that's kind of her argument. You can kind of do both. Stretching is the beginning of mobilization, when mobilization is what is better for most people. Mm-hmm. Stretching is not the answer. Mobilization is a better one. Mm-hmm. But to mobilize, you have to stretch. You know what I mean? Right. Hopefully y'all see what I'm saying. Mm-hmm. So, we got everything. We hit everything we wanted to. We kind of got into all that. As far as, we're going to show y'all, as far as, the mobilization has to come to. Again, this is something that is going to be to the general population.
Heather still got questions.
I love you, Heather. Thank you.
Let's see what you think. Go ahead, you talk. I'll read Heather.
What? Well, we can answer.
She says, can I skip stretching by just foam rolling each region for 2 minutes each? I think that depends on
That's a great question.
And we didn't even touch on foam rolling in this. Vic and I could go on forever about this stuff, right? And is that Dylan? Yeah, Dylan has a question too. And I know he's a runner too. He said, I've heard of strength training to take place in stretching. He does both. Yeah, you should do both, dude. There should be a good balance. Off of Heather's question too, and partly what Dylan's talking about here, is that at the end of the day, all your joints need to move through a complete range of motion, right? So, again, for runners and, for Dylan and Heather that are asking these questions, we're talking about the ankle, right? That needs to go through dorsiflexion, plantar flexion, eversion, inversion, and a little bit of rotation side to side, right? So if you're lacking dorsiflexion, right, which most runners are, then you need to stretch your calves. Foam rolling will probably help. I think for a runner, and particularly a marathoner, stretching is probably best. Because the reason I say that before we go down a rabbit hole here, the reason I say that is because we tell patients all the time, and Heather, I know that you know this, we tell patients all the time, they say, oh, well, I've been adjusted twice now, why don't I feel better? We say, it took you 38 years to get to the point that you're at, right? Why are 3 adjustments going to help? So from a runner's perspective, from a marathoner's perspective, how many marathons have you run? How many hours have you spent running? So do you really think that mobilizing that joint for 5 seconds each side is going to help? Probably not. I think we need to spend a lot more time lengthening that muscle.
If it's truly short, yeah. Here's the thing. To answer, because I get this question a lot, foam rolling hamstrings is really difficult to do. And the reason why is because you don't have enough weight. The only thing that's weighing down a hamstring is a quad and a femur. So foam rolling hamstrings can be a little bit different. I don't think foam rolling for hamstrings alone is a good answer. Definitely a calf. Are you kidding me?
Yes.
Are you kidding me? Foam rolling a calf? There's nothing on top of it. I don't think there's enough weight. I don't think there's enough weight to foam roll.
On a calf?
If you put a calf down, if you put a foam roller, if you put a foam.
Yeah, but you're not a distance runner.
If you
put calves are tight, dude.
First of all, they shouldn't be that tight.
Dude, my heart.
Second of all, I don't think that's enough. I don't think that's enough. I don't think that's enough. And my point to that is probably stretching is going to be a little bit better. Now, here's the beautiful thing. You should probably do both.
I would agree. I would say for runners, like if you're running marathons, you should do both. Let me see. I know Eric had logged on here earlier. Eric, when we worked at Equinox together, he had showed me how to roll my calves by like using a kettlebell and putting my calves on a kettlebell to like dig into them. And I couldn't even do it. I was in so much pain.
Yeah, so that's not foam rolling. That's
a form of like myofascial release.
Yeah.
Right? But like my point to that is that someone who's doing that much repetitive activity, like their calves are in rough shape.
Probably.
Rough shape. Like you should be foam rolling those poor babies. You should be stretching them. You should mobilize it. Like
this
whole 9 yards. They're a disaster.
This is preventative.
And I know because I've done it. So
everything that we're talking about is for prevention.
Too?
Sorry, I started a little bit. Preventative medicine is kind of what we're diving into here. Look, dysfunction is the prerequisite to pain. I probably just blew some people's minds. If you're thirsty, you've
Write
probably
that
been.
down. Write that down.
You've probably been thirsty. If you're thirsty, you've probably been dehydrated for a few hours. If you have pain, there's probably been dysfunction for months to years. Right? Mm-hmm. Just because you have dysfunction does not mean that you need to have pain. But if you have pain, I promise you have dysfunction. Someone's going to say, what about like if there's trauma? If there's trauma, it is the same thing but in reverse. Pain starts, dysfunction follows after. Mm-hmm. Dysfunction will always be there. Mm-hmm. So you have to go find it. Right? How many times you're like, I don't know about y'all, but like if I get my calves worked on, I never have problems with calves, I never have problems with ankles. I've sprained my left ankle 12 times, but I don't have problems with my ankles. If I get my calves worked on, your boy's screaming. The reason why is because there's dysfunction there. Those are those things that you kind of have to figure out. This is why there's a mobility routine, a muscular mobility routine. If you can create heat, if you can create something that will,
I'm just going to check with you.
Something that will create a little bit of heat, so that the glycogenic acid will kind of heat up a little bit, so it's not like a frozen gum. So the point is, if you can prevent those things, you need to have a routine. Mm-hmm. You need to have a routine as much as you're about to go on a run, because you're going to go run 25 miles. Mm-hmm. Right? I'm going to go run a marathon. So I got to go start at 3 miles and then hit 5 and then hit 10 and then hit whatever. You need to have a routine to prevent things from happening. Don't wait on pain to show up. You need to increase your mobility. If your thing, and most people are, if you're on a daily basis immobile, whether it's working or My runners, cardiovascular health, dope. Joint health, maybe. Because there's a lot of impact and you're not moving as much as you should be. Then like there's some issues there. As much as like weightlifters, as much as people that squat like I do, bench like I do, stuff like that. There's always going to be pros and cons. You need to find something that's going to be healthy and preventative, no matter how you feel that day, that you will do religiously, so that you don't blow a disc out like I have. So you don't break your neck, so that you don't break your back in 2 places like I have. Yo, I broke my back in 2 places running track. I was a sprinter and a jumper. It happened over time. There was dysfunction somewhere that created to the point where my vertebrae in my back broke. And I got news for you. I see dysfunction daily. I map it out daily. I do biomechanical analysis daily. I watch videos daily. I promise you, if it cascades, if it starts in your foot, your knee, your hip, if it starts in your shoulders, your hands, anywhere, if it gets to the spine, it doesn't have anywhere to go. It just doesn't.
Dun, dun, dun.
It just doesn't. So, be preventative. Find a good mobile routine for y'all.
Yeah.
And at the same time, I need y'all to remember that to stay mobile doesn't always mean stretching as much as it means to activate muscles. Y'all, I'm about to blow y'all's mind. I have a really cool party trick for y'all. I don't know if y'all want to stand up or not, but if you stand up, and if I tell you to touch your toes, don't go down and just like touch your toes. Go down and try to reach your toes, sit there for a second. Remember that. Then I need you to get up. Do this. Dr. Riddle, shout out to you. Do it again. I don't know if anyone's doing it right now, but if you do it again, you'll notice that you went farther. Now, was the issue your hamstrings? Or was the issue that something else was weaker and then you stimulated that muscle by touching it? So I need y'all to remember, just because a muscle is tight doesn't mean that muscle is the problem. As much as another muscle, that muscle may be weak, but another muscle may need strengthening to help aid in a certain motion. In that situation, lumbar flexion and hip flexion. So, if y'all have any questions about that, if y'all need programming, if y'all need help with certain ranges of motion, strengthening, stuff like that, if y'all need us to watch lifts, if y'all have questions about yoga, if y'all have questions about chiropractic, if y'all have questions about how you can get treated by us, those are things that we can definitely help you with. You just have to direct message us. But I hope, unless you have anything else to say.
No, I think we're good. So we're gonna close down here, and then we're gonna go over and actually show them our routines, right? That's what we're gonna.
Yeah. So we're gonna sign off for people who are not gonna watch it. I love y'all with that. What we're gonna do is we're gonna sign off here. We're gonna go over there. You'll see in a second. We're gonna sign back on to live Instagram. The reason why is because I don't want to edit a video for 16 hours and make it all pretty.
So
we're
Vic
just back on.
he's been really good with editing videos, but he it literally consumes all of his time. So I'm trying to be like a really nice girlfriend and just not put that on him and make him do all these videos.
No,
because he loves doing it, but it's also really time consuming. So, we are going to be posting this. And like I said, if you're super impatient and you see what we're about to do, we're going to shut off here for about a minute, and then we're going to go live again. And we're going to show you both of our mobility routines. And
it's not going to take another 45 minutes.
Yeah, no, it's going to be real quick.
It's going to take 5 minutes probably, so just sit tight.
If you're like super impatient and you're like, yo, that was awesome, I want to start that tomorrow morning, just shoot me a DM with your email and I'll send it over you real quick.
Sure.
Okay. So we're going to shut off right now, and we're going to be back in 1 minute. Okay?
See y'all in 1 second. Don't move.
Don't go anywhere.